right, man. First day of school means the annual gay is on.
First one of us to get wins the...
You suck!
Mr. Birchum, an animated family sitcom created by Adam Carolla and the Daily Wire, is, by all means, a rolling dumpster fire. It was universally panned, even by the froth-at-the-mouth conservatives it was made for. The art style is bland, the animation is rushed and ugly, the jokes are dated and unfunny, and its political takes can be likened to that of a boomer's Facebook page. I won't be talking about the show in general because there are lots of other people on YouTube who've already done so. If you're curious about my general thoughts, I watched the whole series with my friend Tyler, video linked in the description. No, I'm here to talk about the show's fan base, small, primarily queer, and solely focused on two characters, the titular Mr. Richard Birchum and his rival, Mr. Elliot Karponzi. Birchum's family, the side characters, the plot lines, the jokes, the political commentary, all of it is ignored. The only thing that matters to fans is the relationship between Birchum and Karponzi. A sordid love affair filled with antagonism, fiery passion, kinky sex, and a heaping helping of self-loathing. It's a relationship that doesn't actually exist within the show itself. So, how did we get from this to this? Let's discuss. Before we can unpack the ship, we first need to understand the characters we're dealing with. Richard Birchum is the living definition of toxic masculinity. He has an extremely rigid idea of what being a man entails. 1. Men are physically active, they build things, they play sports, they work hard, they get sweaty. 2. Men should strive to get women, be it a girlfriend, a wife, or a sexual relationship. 3. Men drink lots of alcohol and eat a lot of food. 4. Men grow from painful experiences. Because of these beliefs, he has an extremely tumultuous relationship with his son, Eddie. Eddie is a streamer, general gamer, and esports player. He's taken his team to large competitions, landed massive brand deals, and makes lots of money. Yet, Birchum is still unsatisfied and chastises him because he doesn't fit the box Birchum tried and failed to force him into. Of course, Birchum is someone who's ready to dish it out at a moment's notice, despite having no integrity himself to back it up. He's a massive hypocrite. He complains that the youth today are overweight, the only cure being to shame them for it. He sees fatness as a moral failing that shouldn't be tolerated. However, he himself was fat as a child, eating low-quality microwave meals, and even in his adulthood has a dad bod. There's never any indication he does substantial physical activities. He calls others lazy while being lazy himself, handing off memos he doesn't want to deal with to his student aide, ignoring grade calculations sent to him by Karponzi, neglecting to clean up dangerous chemicals, and generally leaving his students to flounder because he can't be bothered to adequately teach them. He takes a stance that all products from China are cheap garbage and he'll only buy American until he's given a Chinese product that's up to his standards, at which point he completely goes back on his word. He hypes up his time in the Navy as though he's an American hero, despite the fact it's implied he never saw combat and was a construction worker/engineer. Birchum is as self-aware as he is concerned with the well-being of others. He doesn't care about his students whatsoever, unless they're doing private work for him. He has no concern for the less fortunate, hating his wife for forcing him to participate in Homes for Humanity, until he realizes he can find enjoyment using the provided tools and potentially try to steal them. On top of it all, Birchum is just an asshole. He's condescending, rude, combative, shows little affection for his wife, and is generally unpleasant. The show is a baffling watch as a result. They essentially made someone who would be the villain in any other show our protagonist. The show bends over backwards to try and frame Birchum as the aspirational man of reason and fails spectacularly. Of course, Birchum has his positive traits too. He gets along well with his stepdaughter Jeannie. It's a genuine subversion for the stepfather and stepchild to have a good relationship and be close with one another. I rather enjoyed it. Their dynamic is cute. Yeah, let's see. He likes soap operas and bonds with his family over them. He's a dog person. Yeah, that's about it. Karponzi is the conservative straw man of a leftist. As a leftist myself, we're not above being made fun of. There are plenty of people on my side who are fucking insane and are fully deserving of being mocked. The problem is that Mr. Birchum, and the right in general, does a shit job at it. The one and only joke they have is that Karponzi sounds crazy. Every line of dialogue this man has is filled with buzzwords haphazardly strung together. As someone who actually understands what these terms being thrown around actually mean, it's an infuriating watch. And the hilarious thing? If all these buzzwords were stripped away, Karponzi would be a totally reasonable person. The show frames Karponzi as evil not because what he's doing is particularly immoral, but because he opposes Birchum. Karponzi's insidious, woke, lib, snowflake, safe space actions are as follows. He wants to ban a safety film called Blood and the Bandsaw that includes gory imagery because he feels it's inappropriate for junior high students. Considering, when the film is shown regardless, we see students fainting, vomiting, and a mother calling in about how her son was traumatized, his concerns were warranted. He wants Birchum to be fired, or at least reprimanded, for failing all of his students and then bribing them with passing grades in exchange for them building his deck for him. This was done at his private residence, off school hours, and he explicitly stated that any student who informed their parents what they'd be doing would be punished. This is what we woke libs call unpaid child labor and exploitation. He's upset that Birchum and Don left their students completely unattended around dangerous tools and materials so they could go drinking on Veterans Day. He's concerned that Principal Bortles, who left her position unexpectedly, was with Birchum and Don. Considering Birchum has already been shown to be untrustworthy, he felt she may have been coerced in some way. He's concerned that several of Birchum's students potentially have learning disabilities and wants him to rework his grading system to accommodate them. He works for Homes for Humanity for the love of charity work, and he wants Birchum fired for reinstalling a climbing rope that had been removed. The rope was found in the shape of a noose, which he felt was an intimidation tactic and show of discrimination. None of these actions are particularly objectionable. Karponzi correctly sees Birchum as a bad teacher who's reckless, bigoted, and irresponsible. He's totally justified in wanting to see him gone or reprimanded for the sake of the students. The only thing that makes these actions seem unreasonable is his incorrect use of buzzwords in a condescending tone. With all that said, Karponzi isn't flawless by any means. He's shown to be egotistical, imagining his poorly written play is worthy of Lin-Manuel Miranda, and has visions of grandeur as the school's future principal. He's the Homes for Humanity foreman, yet does no work, instead sitting in a tent all day in front of a fan, eating snacks and spraying fake sweat on himself to pretend as though he actually did something. He believes in the power and goals of charity, yet is unwilling to put in the work himself. When trying to have Birchum expelled for putting the climbing rope back up, he correctly assumes Don was involved in the scheme. He blackmails him into testifying against Birchum, a duplicitous action that results in his status as Jedi being revoked once revealed. These actions are used to vilify him, though it merely puts him on a similar level of shittiness as Birchum. After watching the show, I assure you, Birchum is not above things like this. Before watching the show, I'd seen all the posts proclaiming Birchum to be gay for Karponzi, I'd seen the ship art in the AMVs. I was under the impression there'd be a decent amount of shippable moments. In actuality, in all 6 episodes, there are 2. When they first meet in episode 1, there's this exchange.
I've got my eye on you, Mr. Birchum.
Unfortunately, I'm taken.
And in episode 4, the two sensually dance. This isn't real, however, and is a hallucination fueled by denatured alcohol fumes. That's it. Seriously. The ship strongly reminds me of Max Goof / Bradley Uppercrust III, aka Maxley. It's a shit between the protagonist and antagonist fueled by nothing other than vibes and a couple small moments, despite the film itself showing little to no chemistry between the two. Fanworks I've seen can be sorted into 3 categories. Category 1, shitposts. These works exist solely to poke fun at the show. They're often rough in their construction or are references to other memes. Pieces in this category differ from the others in that Birchum is often paired not with Karponzi, but with Norm from the equally terrible conservative cartoon, The New Norm. The artistry of these pieces ranges from literal MS Paint doodles to those of professional quality. The intent is the same: mock these terrible shows and the people who made them. Category 2, pure romance. These works show the two existing as a couple. Most of the pieces have them embracing, kissing, and holding hands. These pieces, while beautiful, aren't thematically challenging. Both Birchum and Karponzi are softened. Karponzi's hypocrisy and toxic traits are completely removed, and Birchum's aggression is taken down considerably. He's still gruff and rough around the edges, but isn't an outright asshole. Birchum's family is also seen as an afterthought. In most fanfictions, Wendy is a non-entity, having divorced Birchum, meaning he and Karponzi can freely be together. None of these pieces are trying to be deep. They're pure fluff. It should also be noted that while most of these pieces are quite innocent, there are those that delve into some serious horniness. The fanfictions I've read in particular tend to be explicit or have explicit sections. Category 3, my personal favorite, recontextualizes the relationship between Birchum and Karponzi. In these pieces, the two are not together as a couple. Instead, they depict fantasies. There are several art pieces and fics that feature Karponzi fantasizing about Birchum, but predominantly it's the opposite. Every piece that shows Birchum fantasizing about Karponzi has an element of shame and internalized homophobia. He's simultaneously attracted to Karponzi, yet is repulsed by that attraction. Karponzi opposes him ideologically and is also a man. In Birchum's mind, real men aren't attracted to other men. There are two pieces from this category that I'm particularly fond of. The first is this image by Twitter user Plasmus. It shows Birchum speaking to Karponzi, who's embodied with pride colors. Birchum outwardly is grayscale and indistinct. He demeans Karponzi, making fun of his scooter. However, we also see Birchum's internal self, embodied with bisexual colors. This internal self is being subdued by a shadowy figure, a manifestation of his internalized homophobia. It stifles Birchum's true feelings. He likes Karponzi's scooter, he likes Karponzi, period. The second is a fanfiction written by Love's Labors Found under an anonymous account called Tonight. This one-shot was inspired by an art piece, also by Plasmus. The first few lines of the fic are taken directly from the image. In Tonight, Karponzi is awoken around 3 in the morning by a heavily intoxicated Birchum who begs for a ride home from the bar. Karponzi reluctantly agrees and picks him up. He demands to know why Birchum got drunk so late. Birchum says it's because Eddie has a boyfriend, meaning he's queer. He has no idea how to handle this, as this isn't how he raised him. Karponzi gently points out that Birchum's ideas are outdated and he was probably inadvertently pushing Eddie away. Birchum also lets slip that he has a poor relationship with Wendy, seeing her as naggy. Karponzi questions if this nagging is merely her trying to be heard. Birchum admits he's not good with women. Karponzi brings up Switchblade, the tattooed man Birchum became close with on the Homes for Humanity project. Karponzi insinuates Birchum had a crush on him, which he swiftly denies. Karponzi doesn't buy it. After they pull up to Birchum's home, Karponzi informs him that this will be their last goodbye. He's filing his resignation with the school board. Birchum is stunned for a moment before begging him not to. Karponzi explodes, demanding to know why Birchum would want him to stay despite him making his life a living hell the entire semester. Birchum responds saying, "Elliot, please. I don't know what's happening to me, but ever since you came, I just feel this powerlessness. Like the world is moving on and I can't catch up. Everything is changing all around me and nothing's familiar anymore, and I need something to hold on to, so I don't get left behind." Birchum kisses Karponzi. Karponzi pushes Birchum off. He refuses to be the other woman in an affair. Birchum splutters, but Karponzi demands he leave the car. He speeds off, Birchum watching him go, longingly. Now, the real question is, how did we end up here? How exactly did shippers see the canon characters, a complete asshole with boomer ideologies that lead him to treat others like garbage, and a buzzword-spewing strawman leftist, and go, yes, these two are totally gay for each other. Let's make art of this. For sane people who don't fixate on fictional characters kissing, this may be unfathomable. However, to us degenerates, this makes perfect sense. The Daily Wire, by pure accident, created the perfect setup for an enemies to lovers romance. In short, it's where two characters who start out as hero and villain, or at least protagonist and antagonist, fall in love. It's an extremely popular trope because it's extremely easy to write. Your basic enemies to lovers romance requires 3 things of your characters. They must be attractive, they must hate one another, and they must be subject to situations where they're forced to interact and eventually open up to one another. The tags and captions used in these pieces often refers to the pairing as yaoi, however their designs read more bara to me. Bara is homoerotic media that depicts overtly masculine men. They tend to be bulkier and hairier compared to the soft boys of yaoi. Both Birchum and Karponzi are chunky men with abundant facial and body hair. Plenty of people are into chunky, hairy men, so the first one checks out. The two are on opposing political sides. Of course they hate one another. Check number 2. They work in the same school where they regularly have to interact with one another as they bicker over Karponzi's latest woke course of action. Check number 3. In addition, the show has one more element that makes shipping even easier. It sucks. The characters are all annoying and poorly written. Therefore, shippers ignore them. They're rarely featured in fan art and are either written out of fics entirely or are given zero thought or development. The episode's plots are all uninteresting and stupid, therefore they're thrown out entirely. If any aspects from the show remain, it's small things that are then expounded upon, be it Birchum's hallucinations while trapped in the woodshop, his man crush on Switchblade, or Karponzi's gender non-conforming week in college. When everything sucks, why bother focusing on anything other than the relationship between the two leads? So, between the enemies to lovers dynamic and the lack of investment in any other aspect of the show, the result is as follows. Most works I've seen depict Birchum as bisexual. He's been in relationships with his first wife Denise, his second wife Wendy, and was attracted to a Spanish teacher at a young age. We know he likes women, so we know he's attracted to femininity. Karponzi is very effeminate, from his mannerisms, to the way he speaks, to the way he dresses. It's not too much of a leap for Birchum to see Karponzi's effeminate nature combined with his overtly masculine traits, and be attracted to both. Also, I'm pretty sure people go for bisexual because if he were solely attracted to men, it would make his marriages to two women well into his 40s a real bummer. Karponzi is recharacterized as kind and patient. He's the sort of person to recognize that Birchum is the product of his environment. They butt heads, but he isn't condescending or mean, he genuinely tries to get through to Birchum. Birchum's resistant at first, but as time goes on, he starts to soften and listen to Karponzi, opening up to him. This softening and openness triggers Karponzi's attraction to Birchum. Their relationship can either be very sweet, with cuddling, kisses, and affirmations of love, or it can be steamy, with abundant sexual tension and exploration. Okay, so we figured out how shippers were able to poof a romance into existence. But that doesn't explain where the headcanon of Birchum being a closeted queer comes from. I would imagine that, for most straight people, this would seem rather random. However, as a queer person myself, I know exactly why this interpretation of Birchum came to be. We live in a world that is both heteronormative and queerphobic. That is a fact. There is no arguing that. I'm lucky enough to live in the United States where we're a protected class. However, just because we're protected on paper, that doesn't mean the systems in place actually keep us from being discriminated against. Being able to be out and proud is a privilege, something many people simply do not have. As is, it's easier and, frankly, more convenient to be straight. As such, many, if not most, queer people go through a period of denial. Sometimes that period lasts a few months, sometimes it lasts for decades. During these periods, the knowledge that you're different from straight people is always there, it always exists. That attraction to the same gender can never be acknowledged. So, it's covered up. You overcompensate. It can result in sexism. Your lack of interest in women manifests as a hatred for them. You hate the people you're expected to desire. You hype up how manly you are. You're totally into women, sports, alcohol, cars, hitting the gym, and everything else manly, because you're a man and that's what men do. Often this insistence is less to convince the others around you, but to convince yourself. And if this sounds like I'm speaking from personal experience, it's because I am. I realized I was gay when I was 14, and for about a year afterwards was insistent that I was straight. I was not very convincing. Most people can clock this overcompensation at a glance. The Daily Wire's intent was for Birchum to be the mouthpiece for heteronormativity. Men are strong, they're providers, they're akin to animals on the hunt, they're built for hard labor, they're obsessed with women. He's cartoonish in his insistence that these are important, sacred values. These are things that all men must strive for or else be emasculated. He berates his son and his students when they don't hold up these values. He constantly insists that he encapsulates all the manly things. He loves sports, he loves building things, he was in the military, he was good with the ladies. He is successfully performing his gender. Simply put, if you are comfortable in your gender and sexuality, you don't constantly talk about that comfortability. Many of Birchum's feelings and behaviors betray him. He swears that he loves women, yet he has absolutely no chemistry with his wife. He's never intimate with her, emotionally or otherwise, he openly admits to this. She puts in all the work to be sweet and supportive, and he puts up walls as a result. Viewers place emphasis on his relationship with Switchblade because it's the only time we see him physically intimate with another person. He can hug a man who went to prison for murder, but not his own wife. The sensual dance he hallucinates having with Karponzi is the one and only time we see him being joyfully affectionate with someone. Birchum's hallucination of the burly man, a manifestation of his own thoughts and feelings, insists that real men push their feelings down. This is all extremely transparent. In their attempt to create the manliest character possible, Adam Carolla and the Daily Wire effectively did the opposite. The last topic I covered on this channel was the movie Jupiter Ascending. Please, I beg of you, go watch that video, I worked really hard on it. I love Jupiter Ascending despite its flaws because I can see the potential. And, as crazy as it sounds, I love Mr. Birchum in the same way. I was genuinely surprised. While doing my first reaction with Tyler, there were things about the show I found I liked. They were poorly done, but I could see how something unironically good could come from it. I think it's really cool that other people feel the same. It's amazing that people took this terrible show and reimagined it. They made connections and had interpretations wildly different than what the Daily Wire intended. I think it's hilarious that in trying to appeal to heteronormative conservatives, they accidentally appealed more to queer leftists. This show has spawned some genuinely beautiful fanworks. I've seen posts from people who were actually artistically inspired by the show. The show makes people want to create, be it just to make fun of it or to embrace the reinterpretation the internet created. In that way, in my opinion, the show is a success. Art should inspire, and as crazy as it seems, Mr. Birchum inspired people.